Hi, I'm Hub Arkush for Pro Football Weekly as we preview our NFL Game of the Week for Week 10 of the 2012 regular season. We're going to take a look at the Atlanta Falcons, the lone undefeated team in the National Football League, as they visit the New Orleans Saints, with the Saints coming back off their best game of the year last week in prime time. Dan Parr, associate editor, covers the NFC South for us. And Dan, let's start there. I think the Saints did give their best performance of the season last weekend. Now, is it enough to come back and play with the Falcons? Because if they don't, Falcons can pretty much wrap up the NFC South here.
Yeah, I have my doubts about whether the Saints can come back and deliver the same kind of performance, especially defensively, that they did against the Philadelphia Eagles, a team with so many problems on offense, offensive line that has injuries and just isn't playing well right now. The Falcons aren't a star-studded offensive line, but they're better than the one that Philadelphia has. Matt Ryan's a better quarterback than Michael Vick right now. I think offensively, there's going to be some very different and much more difficult challenges posed to the Saints.
You know, both of these teams in prime time last week, the Saints on Monday night, the Falcons at home on Sunday night against the Cowboys. Cowboys gave them all they could handle, but the story of that game was kind of Michael Turner. Where you been all season? Because he sure showed up last week.
That's right, he scored a touchdown. Michael Turner, of course, for so many years, the backbone of the Falcons offense. This year it's not the same, and it's not going to be, I don't think, against the Saints, even though they have really struggled against the run. The Falcons want to throw the football against anybody, and they think they can. Michael Turner is going to be used, and I think if he gets rumbling, then they're just impossible to stop. If the Saints don't do a better job of tackling than they did against the Eagles, this will be an absolute blowout.
Now, the Falcons, up until last week, had struggled terribly against the run. They were 28th in the league. They've moved up to 24th. The Cowboys' wounded backs couldn't do much against them. But the big difference in the Saints' offense, last year they were 6th running the football, in addition to number 1 with the pass. This year they're not running the ball much at all, and it almost seems by design.
Well, you know what? Actually, this past week it finally woke up after struggling all season long, and they were without Darren Sproles, who's been such a big part of that running game, especially, with joining the team last season when they were ranked 6th in the league. Mark Ingram shows up. Chris Ivory, who hadn't gotten an opportunity all season long, led the team in rushing in Week 9. So if you're able, the Saints to be a balanced attack, if they get back to doing that, they're much better off. And this offense is still very explosive, so the Falcons are going to have their hands full defensively. There's no question about that. We'll see if Sean Weatherspoon is back, who missed the game in Week 9, one of the most talented defenders for the Falcons.
Yeah, Ingram and Ivory showed up because I had Pierre Thomas starting in my fantasy league. Now you look at the Atlanta Falcons, and Julio Jones has been the big difference, along with the unbelievable season from Tony Gonzalez.
And you have to mention Roddy White as well. The Falcons think he's been basically their best player from week in and week out, most consistent guy on the team maybe. I think the Falcons, if they look at the skill positions against the Saints, defensive backs, some really difficult matchups coming up for Steve Spagnuolo. He was able to have that defense play its best game of the year by blitzing the absolute heck out of Michael Vick. I don't think you can take that same approach against Matt Ryan and hope for the same results. He will beat that blitz. You have physical receivers who are going to beat the jam at the line of scrimmage in Jones and White. So with a guy like Roman Harper in that defensive backfield, you can bet Dirk Cutter has him circled this week on his game plan. They're going to be looking to get him in positions where he has to match up with a guy like Tony Gonzalez or one of those receivers one-on-one in the slot. And if he doesn't have help over the top, look out.
All right, now the big difference this year has been the defense. There's no question about that in New Orleans. And yet Drew Brees hasn't been Drew Brees. His completion percentage, he's been off by almost 15 points. Now, again, a little better last week. It is prediction time. Can that Saints defense do enough to knock off the Falcons?
I don't see it. I know that you come off last week against the Eagles and you say, wow, this is just a different-looking Saints team. But then think back to the week before against the Broncos. Completely different effort. Nothing going defensively, and the offense didn't play up at all close to expectations or even what it's capable of doing. So I don't think you know right now from week to week what you're going to get out of the Saints. The Falcons, on the other hand, very consistent all season long. I think they take care of this one.
You know, the Falcons this year remind me of those dirty birds of the late 90s who kept saying they can't be that good, and then they woke up in the Super Bowl. It's time to start believing these Atlanta Falcons. I don't think the Saints have got enough to knock them off either. That'll do it for our Game of the Week preview. For all the best in news, notes, and analysis, make sure you stay at ProFootballWeekly.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.